This one.
Please welcome to the Bema Reverend Dr. Keith Cox.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. There we go. The law of reciprocation. Joanne's like, what is... I needed it, Joanne. I needed it. So, oh, God just spoke to me. So, welcome to our Sunday celebration service. So happy to have you here with us today. On music today, we're blessed to have Stuart Elster on piano here as our guest musician. Pete Orlansky on bass, upright bass. Andy Belling, our co-music director, on piano, keyboards, and orchestration. And we're so happy to have back with us again Guy Azule today. So thank you for coming here and joining us in community on Sunday morning here, President's Day weekend, at the Center for Spiritual Living Los Angeles. We're a metaphysical, new thought-based community that comes together every Sunday morning at 10 a.m., whether you're here with us in the room live or you're joining us through Facebook Live. Hello, Facebook Livers. And our live stream, there's a camera in the back to those that are joining us live or later. We come together to honor you on your spiritual journey of finding your personal self-empowerment through a spiritual awakening. We practice the philosophy and the faith and the way of life that is known as the science of mind here primarily, and other new thought and Eastern-based type of philosophy here that believes that there's only one power that exists in the universe. And it matters not what you call it, but that you call it often, because the more that you call upon it, that which indwells within you and within me, then your life has the opportunity to get better and better and better, primarily by aligning yourself with the qualities of the divine that exist equally among all of us, which are peace, power, beauty, joy, light, life, love, and wisdom. And so, welcome. We are happy to have you here with us today. And if you're here just as a first time, how many new people do we have here today, first-time visitors? We have several. Great to have you. Thank you for being here with us. We had a packed house last week for Bring a Friend Sunday, so you're Bring a Friend Sunday to the second degree, so we're happy to have you here. Many of you brought your own friends, and so I love that. So we open our service every Sunday morning with a ritual, and the purpose of that ritual is so that you can ground yourself in the oneness that exists in and as yourself of the divine. That is led by our practitioner of the day. We have an illuminator of the day, and then our musicians will take us through a little bit of music called Calling in the Light. You'll get to hear some of that, and then the ritual will transpire, and then at the end you'll have an opportunity to do call and response, meaning that the musician will sing something and you'll respond that back to them. You'll follow the audience, they'll do that. And then in the end you'll hear spiritual mind treatment, which is the manner in which we pray in this philosophy, faith, and way of life, which is declarative and affirmative, not in supplication. So I'd like to welcome to the Bema our practitioner of the day, Elizabeth Dadd, and our illuminator of the day, a gentleman on his way to practitionerdom, William Gewirtz.
Calling in the light, calling in the light, calling in the light of love, calling in the light, calling in the light, calling in the light of
Good morning. The ritual we perform this morning is called Calling in the Light. Today we perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples and all faiths, all sentient beings, come from the one great universal presence, which we call Spirit. The purpose of this ritual is to draw into our gathering this morning a conscious awareness of our oneness and the qualities we possess as complete expressions of the divine. As we feel the vibrations shift during this experience, may we become ever more aware of the light of Spirit that exists in and as all expressions of life, including you and me. The quality of the divine we will focus upon today is power. we will use the acronym of the word power during this ritual to create an opportunity for each of us to embrace our light in a more expansive way. Power, presenting our wholeness, enhances reality. So as Will lights the first candle for the letter P, it stands for presenting. In this context, presenting is the action of consciously sharing the presence of God. In the book, The Science of Mind, this is defined as follows. To meditate upon the presence is to draw in the universe into one's own soul. The letter O is for our. Being one with all life, Dr. Holmes addresses this in this quote. The one spirit has placed the stamp of individuality upon itself and called it you. W. This candle is illuminated for the word wholeness. In spiritual terms, when we are speaking of the whole, we are speaking of the divine, which is also known as Source, God, the thing itself. E. Will lights this candle for the word enhances. Synonyms for this word are intensifies, increases, and improves the qualities of. R stands for reality. In spiritual terms, reality means that which is indestructible, incapable of decay. It is unchanging and everlasting. And so this morning, as we practice conscious communion with the divine presence, the awareness of our wholeness and oneness is intensified and increased, which in turn benefits not only ourselves, but the world about us. We have come to see through this ritual that we are conscious individualizations of the great reality, expressing our true selves wisely, with compassion, ease, and with power. Power, presenting our wholeness, enhances reality. Now moving to the sixth candle, as Will lights the sixth and final candle, that which is known as the healing candle, we ask that you take a moment and think of someone you would like to silently put into the light of the healing flame, that they may experience the eternal and everlasting love of the divine.
I am love. I am love. I am peace. I am peace. In my heart. In my heart. I am free. I am free. I am spirit. I am spirit. I am soul. I am soul. All together. All together. We are whole. Calling in the light. Calling in the light, calling in the light of love, calling in the light, calling in the light, calling in the light of love. And so it is. And so it is, and so it is.
So as we take a deep breath and feel that power that is present right here and right now in all its wholeness, in all its glory, within us and all about us, we affirm that we are this power, inextricably connected to it, created as human beings right here and right now to fully embody the one, the divine, the great reality. And so we come together today in gratitude for this loving community that allows us to walk together each of our own unique journeys, gaining support and enthusiasm from each other, that we may step the next step, that we may do what is ours to do, that we may continue with peace, with beauty, with joy, to grow, to continually enhance that which we are, knowing that all is well in our life, that there is a power that works in harmony, in order, in intelligence, and in love. I accept this for all of us in this room today, knowing that great things are ahead for us, here, now, tomorrow. And so it is with great thankfulness and joy that I release these words to Spirit, knowing that it returns in manifestation in all good, in all ways. And together let us say, and so it is.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So beautiful. And William Dortz, thank you. Fantastic illumination. Come on in, ladies and gents. Come on in. Wonderful. I like that acronym for power. Presenting our wholeness enhances reality. Right? I wrote it. But I like it. And it makes great sense, and I'd encourage you to really listen to that and look at that from a perspective as the quality of the divine that exists within us. That is wholeness that is there, and there is power that is in that. And as we present that to the external, our wholeness, it enhances our reality, because what must be mirrored back to us is more of what we're presenting to it. That's the way one of the laws of life works. So speaking the way law of life works, the law of life has drawn into our sphere of reality today, Stuart Elster. And I know that many of you are here today because of him. I know that many of you like to hear him. There's a dear friend of mine, and I walk into her house, and every time I hear your music playing, she says to me, "That's Stuart Elster." I said, "I know." And so I told her, I said, "Make sure you're here today because Stuart's back." So if you're a first-time listener of Stuart's work, he's a very, 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 very talented musician. One of the things I love about our music team of co-directors of Andy Bellin and Yaron Spiewak is we attract an amazing talent here that's diverse in all of its nature, but all equal by its state of professionalism, and that is enhanced today in a great way. And I know that not only will he bring you joy, but Andy shared this morning, just when Stuart's here and during rehearsal, how overjoyed he is because of the high caliber of a musician that he is, along with his team. So without further ado, Stuart Elster and our band.
Hello. What do I do now? Okay, thank you. And I just want to say a couple of things real quick. Valentine's Day was Friday night, and of course I was working. Everybody was out. I was playing at Herb Alpert's Club Vibrato, and there was all two tops, couples on their Valentine's Day dates, and it's a wonderful thing. And there's God knows in my career I've accompanied hundreds of singers, and there's a little story that we have amongst ourselves about. I don't want to offend anybody, but they said, how many girl singers does it take to sing My Funny Valentine? And the answer is apparently all of them, so. And it's a well done song. It's a beautifully crafted melody, and I wish more of the singers would pay attention to the actual melody, because these singers like to use it to show off and stuff. But I'm going to play that, and I'm going to try and stick with the melody, and this is a beautiful, beautiful song, My Funny Valentine.
Stuart Elster, Peter Lansky, Andy Belling, and Guy Azule. Beautiful. So we continue this week with the season for nonviolence. And if you're here for the first time, we started on the 2 Sundays ago as we kicked off this season that is presented by the Association of Global New Thought. That is an annual event that takes place from January 30th to April 4th. And it's paired between the birthdays of Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. And the vision statement for Season for Nonviolence is to carry the vision of these two gentlemen. And so today I'm going to continue furthering that vision with my message to you with some invitations and instructions to invite you to use this vision and the purpose of the Season for Nonviolence and the components of that to not only enhance your life, but to enhance all of life itself. To recap the concept of nonviolence, nonviolence is known as the personal practice of being harmless to the self and to others under every condition. It comes from the belief that hurting people, animals, or the environment is unnecessary to achieve an outcome and refers to a general philosophy of abstention from violence. Now, oftentimes, certainly in metaphysical terminology, or those of us that walk the pathway of carrying the torch of personal self-empowerment through spiritual awakening, we oftentimes don't think that there is any violence in us. We've certainly come to a personal awakening where we think that we're in control of our thoughts and our beliefs and our actions and our reactions and our interactions in life, and they're far from what we believe is the act of violence. And certainly if we look at it relative to what we see in the media, on television, or read about when it comes to war or gun violence or certainly physical violence, that's probably true. I certainly want to believe that that part is true. But violence takes many different forms. It can take the form of lashing out at someone or to the self in the mirror using terminology that doesn't enhance your qualities as the divine. It can be thinking thoughts in a very habitual manner of not knowing your self-worth and using behavior in a way that's not propagating your good. So I invite you this morning to not get attached to some traditional terminology for violence when I talk about that, or the absence of that nonviolence, but to look at it from a concept of how can you fine-tune your thinking, fine-tune your beliefs, fine-tune the way that you show up in the world that is not just propagating peace, the opposite of violence, if you will, but continues to propagate oneness in life, that is using the spiritual law of life of cause and effect in a way that is purposeful and with intention, and that you live life from a perspective of knowing that there is a consciousness of humanity, of all sentient beings actually, and that your use of your own individualized aspect of that in a purposeful way can indeed propagate the peace that we desire. Now, last Sunday I talked about peace, and we talked about forgiveness the previous week, but I used the acronym for peace of purposeful energy activates conscious evolution. PEACE. I'll read that to you again. Purposeful energy activates conscious evolution. Well, what is conscious evolution? Conscious evolution is living from a place where you not only just know that you know that you know that there is one power, it is God, and that you are that fully expressed, and so are all expressions of life, but that you use to almost every degree possible your power in a way, your presenting of your wholeness in a way that radiates in a way that all that is in the outward expression of who you are is a reflection of that oneness, and the qualities of that oneness are peace, power, beauty, joy, light, life, love, and wisdom. It's showing up in a way that you're just not aware that injustices are taking place in the world, but you're doing your part to heal those, to prevent those, to stand up, to take a stand when injustice is transpiring or being taken place in the world that we live in, and doing something about it. Now, are you called to do something about it in the form of prayer and affirmative prayer or knowing the truth? Absolutely. Because in this philosophy and in this teaching, we know that every single thing begins and ends with mind, the mind of God, which is individualized by you and by me. However, what we're called to do, not only just during this season, but at all times, is to go beyond that. To go beyond that and to use our power in the way that we show up to then create some different outcome when injustices transpire. Well, what are injustices? I'll read some of those to you again, like I did last Sunday and the Sunday before, so we have a place to frame what they are. Injustice is defined as a lack of fairness or justice. It's an unjust act or occurrence. Synonyms for injustice are brutality, tyranny, inequity, corruption, repression, bigotry, favoritism, partiality, one-sidedness, discrimination, partisanship, intolerance, scandal. Now, there's many more. But just as I invited you last week, I invite you today to ask yourself, is there anywhere in life that you know that any of these, or just one of these, is taking place? And if you know that that is taking place, and you know that your use of your power, the way that you present your oneness, your wholeness to the world, is indeed has the capacity to create a ripple effect, an effect out into the world, then I believe that we're called to use that power in a way to combat that injustice that's taking place. Martin Luther King frames this concept in this way. He says, Mahatma Gandhi was inevitable. If humanity is to progress, Gandhi is inescapable. He lived, thought, and acted inspired by the vision of humanity evolving toward a world of peace and harmony. We may ignore Mahatma Gandhi, but we do so at our own risk. Now, I paraphrase that to really call it into being for us to know that if we pretend like we don't know that we are all responsible for what's taking place in humanity, then we are living in denial of what we know is our power and responsibility, and we indeed can enact the quote from Gandhi that we are to be the change that we desire in the world. That doesn't just mean that we need to be the change when it comes to our profession. It doesn't mean that we're just to be the change when we show up on Sunday morning. It doesn't mean that we're just supposed to be the change in our role as a parent or as a worker or as a co-parent or a lover or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a musician or a 12-stepper or whatever, fill in the blank. It means that we are to be the change in all aspects of our life. Well, that's a big calling, don't you think? That's a pretty big calling. But what I know is that if we know that that's our calling and we engage in that calling day by day, thought by thought, belief by belief, action by action, reaction by reaction, interaction by interaction, we will then begin to build the belief system, the foundation of a consciousness that will then evolve based on those actions, reactions, interactions, thoughts, and beliefs at a higher vibrational frequency that will then lead to conscious evolution. And because the law of life responds to us by corresponding, meaning that it brings forth to us an experience that is reflective of the consciousness that we choose to have, then we are doing the work that we're being called to by Mahatma Gandhi. We are then engaging and being that change that we desire to see in the world. There again, a big calling. So week one, our first act of learning to live from a place of nonviolence was to engage in self-forgiveness. To engage in self-forgiveness from a way, as our bookmark told us, to know it, which is knowing that who you are is greater than what you have done or not done, have or don't have. Today, meaning that particular day and every day forward, is to forgive yourself for forgetting that the good that is you. Then in the week two, we moved to reverence. And last week, I encouraged you, invited you, as you walked out the door of this beloved center into your everyday life, to go for a walk and realize the beauty that exists around you, above you, and beyond you. In other words, choose to not only know that one of the qualities within you is beauty, but that everything that you see in front of you is that beauty. And why is that? Because you're owning the beauty that exists within you. That is, by owning that, you are participating in that evolutionary consciousness, if you will, and it must show up. Because the law of life, spirit, that consciousness is being responded to by the law, which is impersonal, bringing forth an experience that's relative to the state of mind that you're choosing to own. Which then leads us into the third week of choosing to engage in nonviolent actions in our life, which is courage. And that's the bookmark that you have with you today. And a big thank you to Reverend Lenore for not only making these, but gifting them to each and every one of you. The quote on here for courage is, Eleanor Roosevelt urged, "You must do the things you cannot do this week. Light a candle and accept the courage to practice living in peace." So today I'm going to encourage you to go beyond just living in peace, but to have the courage to live your life whole, complete, in an external way that is a reflection of the practice that you've done internally. Courage is a big word, and we hear it a lot today, but I want to address it from a different perspective. In the writing by Brené Brown, courage is a heart word. She addresses it in this concept. She says the root of the word courage is cor, the Latin word for heart. In one of its earliest forms, the word courage had a very different definition than it does today. Courage originally meant to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. Over time, this definition has changed, and today courage is more synonymous with being heroic. But she goes on to write, but I think we've lost touch with the idea that speaking honestly and openly about who we are, about what we're feeling, and about our experiences, both good and bad, is the definition of courage. What she's talking about is coming out of the closet spiritually. That's really what she's talking about, is not living in shame on any level whatsoever, about knowing who we are as awake, alert, conscious beings walking this planet, knowing that all that we engage with is a reflection of who we are, not in physical form, but it's a reflection in physical form because of this resonance field that we recognize as the vibrational field of the interconnectedness that we share as one being. That's what she's talking about here, is that we don't just know it in our mind, but we walk through life navigating, living from a state of namaste, of looking into the eyes of every single sentient being that we see, and have an internal dialogue that says the God in me honors and acknowledges and recognizes the God in you. And then to go the next step, and to ask internally, is there an injustice in your life that I can have the courage to help remedy? Now that's a lot to do. Do you not agree with that? But the question that I ask you, and I talked about last week, is that what if you were the individual that needed that support and that help? Would you hope that the person that was coming your way had the courage to look at you and say, what can I do to support you, my brother and sister of the divine? Of course we would, and I'm sure we've all had those experiences where we've needed that help. But it's important for us to know and to remember that when we've needed it, more than likely someone has shown up. I've told the story when I was going through a crisis about 1.5 years ago. I was walking with my dog, and I was having this moment of really about to have a meltdown. It was already happening internally. And I saw this woman across the way, up the street and down the street. And I see her walking this dog, and I knew that I was about to collapse on the ground. I didn't really recognize her so much, but I recognized her dog because our dogs had played. And I start screaming, hey, 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 trying to get my voice. At a point she turns around, I said to her, come here. And we walk and we meet in the state of namaste. And she says, what? And I said to her, I need a hug. And it wasn't I need a hug as in, oh, let's hug it out. It wasn't that. It was I need a hug so that I can touch the conduit of the divine that will remind me that I am good. I am God, and I'm enough just as I am. Now, I'm telling you that not to show you that I have the ability to walk and show my courage. In fact, it took a great deal of vulnerability to do that and to do that here today. But I'm doing it to share the example that we're all on this journey of personal self-empowerment through a spiritual awakening. And part of that journey is being conscious enough to have the courage to be willing to be vulnerable with our brotherhood and our sisterhood of humanity. And we're not just brothers and sisterhood of humanity. We're brothers and sisterhood of humanity because we're brothers and sisterhood of divinity. It's because of our divine connection that we then get to express our humanity. Does that make sense? And so that's what we're being called to do. And we had our moment, this woman and I, Adrienne, and we hugged it out, and she turned to walk away, and I turned to walk away feeling really zhuzhed and ready, and I was back and reconnected, and I wasn't going to collapse on the ground, and I wasn't going to die, and I wasn't going to melt. And she stopped, and I stopped, and we turned and looked at each other, not in a romantic way, but we turned and looked at each other and said, oh my God, I don't know your name. And we met. But the truth is, the name didn't matter. It didn't matter at a divine level because we did know each other's name. It was God. That was our name. Or Doug, or whatever the term is that you want to call God. But of course, being humans, we communicate in language, so knowing her individual name does matter. So today I'm inviting you to allow yourself to be willing, to be courageous enough, to be vulnerable enough to speak out to the world, to the universe, that which you need support in, that which you need help in, that which you're willing to let someone help you grow through or grow into. Because once again, as my favorite wonderful teacher that many of you know for many years, David Walker, used to say, all God's children got stuff. And what he meant by that is that we're all going through stuff. But unfortunately, in the world that we live in today, we are told to take that and hold it in. To hold it in until it becomes a crisis, and then reach out. But we don't have to wait till it becomes a crisis. We have support of those around us to just say, hey, girl, this is what I'm going through, without an attachment as to how that is received. It's by speaking our truth that the universe responds. So once again, I invite you and I encourage you today to have the courage to express more of your vulnerability, not only to others, but to yourself, to let it out for the good of others. Well, what does that mean? It means that the good of others and the good of order, as you let go of yourself, as what's going on within you, you give courage to others to do the same. As we all consciously step into propagating our awakened selves, then that is indeed, as Dr. Walker used to always say, for the good of order. For the good of order. Well, the order of what? Of humanity. And so today we each get to have the opportunity to choose whether or not we're going to show up and take a stand to make a difference on this planet. And preparing for today, I was remembering the statement that used to be said in this teaching in this particular church every Sunday, that our vision statement was making a difference, right? Making a difference. And so often when we're told in this world, or we're called to make a difference, we think that we have to make this massive difference by going out and building schools or solving world hunger or fill in the blank or fill in the blank. But that's not what we're called to do. What we're called to do is to support our brothers and sisters. What we're called to do is to honor the divinity within each other and whatever that looks like. And then if we want to cure cancer or heal hunger or homelessness, doesn't mean don't do that. But it's to listen to your heart song and let that guide you as to how you are to make a difference. But what is required for us is to take a stand. Mahatma Gandhi asked the Indians, when they were confronted with what was going on from the British within them, to no longer buy any textiles that were made in Britain, to spin their own cloth to avoid purchasing these textiles. He urged the Indians to boycott British educational institutions and to resign from government jobs, to not use British courts, and to give up British honors and titles. Imagine if what I was calling you to do today was to weave your own textiles. A pretty big step, huh? But it's just symbolism. It's just symbolism of deciding what it is in your life you're no longer willing to participate in that is propagating something that is contrary to good. One of the things that we've chosen to do here at the Center for Spiritual Living Los Angeles is to do everything in our power to no longer consume plastic. That in and of itself is not propagating good for humanity or Mother Earth. And so that's just a small stand. But in many ways, it's a big stand. And so I invite you today to ask yourself, where are you willing to engage in something that you know is an injustice in the world, and to own who you are, and to trust with faith that the universe has got your back, baby, and it'll bring forth to you an experience that is relative to your desire. Mahatma Gandhi addressed this in this concept when he said, whenever you are confronted with an opponent, conquer him with love. Nonviolence is a weapon of the strong. Strength does not come from physical capacity. It comes from an indomitable will. Complete independence will be complete only to the extent of our approach and practice to truth and nonviolence. Independence, which is also a synonym for freedom, of my conception, he writes, means nothing less than the realization of the kingdom of God is within you on this earth. Complete independence through truth and nonviolence means the independence of every unit, be it the humblest of the nation, without distinction of race, color, or creed. What he's calling us to do here is to own the freedom that we have as individualized expressions of the divine, to conquer through truth and nonviolence that which we know to be an injustice in the world. And I love it that he says here that this independence of my conceptions, meaning the freedom that comes to each of us as expressions of the divine, is nothing less than the realization of the kingdom of God within you. It's exactly what we teach here. That the kingdom of God, meaning the glory, the magnificence, the perfection, the wholeness, the completeness of the divine, exists within you and within me. We don't have to do anything for that to be there. But there's a lot we're called to do if we want to experience it. And the way that we experience is really being awake and alert to how we show up in life. Change isn't always easy. Buddha tells us that the change is never painful. It's our resistance to the change that's painful. Hear that again. Change itself is never painful. It's our resistance to the change that is painful. So I ask you today, what is it that you're resisting to change in your world? Where in your world are you not willing to live your most authentic life? Where in your life are you in the closet? And are you willing to come out from a place of truth and nonviolence? Henry David Thoreau writes, it's not what you look at in life that matters. It's what you see that matters. This week, I had the most wonderful opportunity to hang out with my first girlfriend ever. Yes, I had him. My first girlfriend ever. And I haven't seen her in well over 40 years. And I love this woman because we have a great, rich history. And I love her not just from the history, but several years ago, she reached out to me and said, I want to talk to you about something. And I said, what is that? And this was on Facebook. And she goes, I want you to know, do you know about our dear friend, Emery? And I said, no, I don't. And I remember sharing sociology class with both of these beloved individuals in 1977. And she goes, well, Emery has had some great changes in his life. And I said, well, what are they? And he goes, well, Emery is now known as Gabrielle. Knowing that in Jonesboro, Georgia, that's a massive change. I immediately reached out to find Gabrielle on Facebook and realized that Gabrielle not only still lives in Atlanta, but this has been quite a journey for Gabrielle, but Gabrielle is a member of the Center for Spiritual Living in Atlanta, and that we have many mutual friends. And so I reached out knowing that Gabrielle was reluctant to engage with individuals from her past because of a lot of hurt that has taken place, and said, here's why I'm reaching out to you. I've been informed that you've gone through some changes. Obviously, from your photographs, you've gone through some great changes in your life, and I just want to reconnect, and we have a lot of good friends, and we created this great dialogue. And Gabrielle shared with me the journey of her life, which has not been an easy one. The loss of family and her own children due to this shift that took place in her life. This realization of owning who she is as an authentic being. And I'm so proud of her because shortly after my friend Natalie and I connected on Monday and had lunch and we talked about that, several days later, I saw this post from Gabrielle. And I want to read to you what she wrote so that it can give you an example of what's possible in life. She goes, in all of the times I've spent attending sports events, never in my wildest dreams that I would imagine my experience would unfold the way it did this past Valentine's Day evening. You see, this particular evening was the Atlanta Hawks' first gay pride night, with the theme of the evening being Love Wins. This night was very special because Transformation Journeys Worldwide, that's her company that she owns, educating corporations around the world on how to engage in people that are non-binary gender focused or trans, was being recognized as the Atlanta Hawks' True Comes in All Colors organization for the work that we do for the trans and non-binary community. This moment became surreal when we saw ourselves on the Jumbotron and heard the announcer describe the work that we do to the entire area. If that wasn't enough, as we were ushered to our seat, who was seated in front of us, but none other than former President and First Lady Jimmy and Rosalind Carter. It was an honor to meet them and shake their hand. And of course, this evening would not have been complete without my beautiful daughter, Samantha, by my side cheering me on. She goes on to write how appreciative she was for not only that evening, but the support she's gotten along the way. And so she said that particular Valentine's Day will be one to go down in the memory book. I shared that with you this morning because I'm inviting you to have faith in a higher power, that whatever it is that you're holding within, that is time for you to come out of the closet about it. It need not be anything around your sexuality or your gender. It's just anything in life that you're holding on to. Feeling that the love of life will not support you, today is the day to come out. To release whatever it is that you're holding, which may be in shame, it may be in guilt, it may be something that you won't think someone will look highly of you, and just let go of it. Find someone to open up like I did to that woman on the street and say, I need a hug. The hug symbolizing, meaning that you know that the power of life has your back. Have faith and trusting and knowing that the power that we're talking about here is an unfailing power. It's an impersonal power. It's there for you as you use it. And let today be the day that you take the first step to live from a place of vulnerability, which is expressing and exercising courage. And in so doing, each and every step of the way, you will have the opportunity to expand and build your consciousness, to evolve your consciousness, to know who you are as a child of the divine in a new way. And the law of life must reciprocate with that. Because what I know before you, that as a gay boy from Jonesboro, Georgia in the 70s, having walked a dark path, that if it can happen for me and it can happen for Gabrielle Claiborne, that it can happen for you. And whatever age you are in life cannot be a barrier to your good being made manifest, nor any other physical condition or anything that you've done in the past, because the principle of life is not bound by precedent. It's waiting for you to step into your power and say yes, because that's exactly what it does. Have the courage to live it out loud. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let today be the day. Thank you. Thank you. So I welcome back our musicians, Guy, Andy, Pete, and Stuart.
Thank you for those beautiful words.
You all know that this month is Black History Month, so we're gonna, through music, which is one of the greatest contributions that African Americans have given the world, we're gonna go back to the roots of the spirituals, the old, they call them Negro spirituals, but these songs emanate from the slave era, and there's so many double meanings of the lyrics that we don't know on surface, but they talk about freedom and other issues. So there's a particular song called Hold On, and part of those lyrics, you know, the part I like is the response to the song is keep your hands on the plow, hold on. It says, you can't keep a straight track if you keep looking back, so keep your hands on the plow and hold on. So that's a song of inspiration and to continue forward. The lyrics were changed in the civil rights era of Martin Luther King to the keep your hands on the plow, hold on, was to keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. That was the theme of the civil rights movement. So we're gonna start with that. There was a whole, in jazz music in the 1950s and 1960s, the African Americans particularly, the musicians that were African American went back to these roots of the spirituals, and there's a whole movement of jazz called soul jazz. So we're gonna segue with a spiritual hold on into one of the iconic songs of the 60s called Moanin', M-O-A-N-I-N, not morning, Moanin', okay, so, and that was written by a gentleman named Bobby Timmons. So that's, here we go.
Yes. Stuart Elster. Love it. Stuart, Pete, Andy, and Guy.